there a problem with New Age spirituality? If there is, what is the issue, and is there something that we can do about it? Is there a way to rescue the New Age and to make something that could actually be helpful and supportive of all people at this time? That is really the question that's driving me and why I'm creating this video today. And I just want to give my shout out just at the start to Anna's Analysis and Anna's channel. It's a really awesome channel. She really inspires me with her videos and all of the time that she does to prepare them and the information that she shares. And that is really what I want to do in this video. It's basically a response video to her video about the problem with New Age spirituality and some with the problem of New Age influencers. Now, there's a lot of different topics that she brings up. There's stuff I want to say about each one. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just going to hit on the top 3 things that she talks about and try to give a wider perspective, because this is my issue with critiquing the New Age. If you're going to critique the New Age, if you're going to critique the spiritual mindset, then you also have to understand that you are coming from a mindset as well, right? So more likely than not, if you're critiquing the spiritual mindset, if you're critiquing people who are religious even, you have what is known as, or what I would call, a rationalist mindset, right? A rationalist mindset is the idea that what is right or true, and you base your opinions and your actions on what you believe to be reasonable or rational, not something spiritual. And another mindset that comes in when people are critiquing the New Age is the materialist mindset. So not just materialist like you are materialistic and you only like material things, although that does come up, but really in a philosophical sense, right? Materialism means that at the end of the day, all you really believe that exists is physical matter, and everything that happens can be traced back to physical matter interacting with itself and creating things that go on. So this is the perspective that I believe Anna is coming from when she's creating her video. She's a rationalist and she's a materialist, right? Most people believe what's rational is what's really true. Most people believe that what's material is what is real. Right? So if we don't believe what the New Age says, what does the mainstream standard belief say about that particular topic? And as someone who really finds a lot to disagree with on both sides of that, I guess I just want to invite everyone to think about, okay, if we disagree with this and we disagree with that, what could the middle way be, right? What could the new path be? I see so much criticism on YouTube, on Facebook, everywhere you look. People are tearing each other down, breaking each other down, making all of these arguments, and I really don't see enough of people saying, but this is how it could be, and this is what we would want. And this channel is all about dreaming, all about opening up our imaginations, all about being willing to say, hey, what about this? What about the third way? And so that's really what I want to give to you guys today in this video. So the first thing that I wanted to respond to Anna was talking about, and I think is the law of attraction, right? I think that spiritual bypassing happens because there's also this idea that you create your reality completely, right? So every thought that you have is actually creating this external reality, and so you have to be very, very careful and make sure you never have any negative thoughts, because if you do, something negative is going to happen to you, right? This law of attraction that like begets like or whatever. And I think Anna did a really good job in her video talking about why the law of attraction is so problematic and can be basically very psychologically harming to people, right? Because if you're telling somebody who's in a very difficult external situation that they created that situation by their thoughts, you really are putting a lot of responsibility on them, and they might already be in a situation where they're feeling really bad about themselves and not really feeling very empowered. So just kind of piling it on at that moment is just not necessarily going to be helpful or even true. But what I want to offer here is the other side of this coin, right? Because if the spiritual mindset is that your internal states are what dictate your external reality, I would say that the mainstream, what I would call the rationalist mindset or the materialist mindset, and from that perspective, I think a lot that we get taught, if we aren't taught law of attraction, what we're taught is our external reality and the things that we do externally, right? The actions that we take are what affect our internal world. Right? So instead of saying our internal world can control the whole external reality, I feel like in the materialist and the rationalist mindset, our external world is what creates the internal reality. And why my suggestion is that there's flaws on both sides, right? Because if you tell people that it's their external reality that is going to dictate their internal reality, that might also be very disempowering, right? Because if you tell them, well, you're one of the really unlucky ones who ended up with that disease or that situation, horrible traumatic situation, and so you're going to be suffering the rest of your life, right? That's not something we want to be telling people either. And so again, I really feel like there's a middle way here. Right? There's nuance. And really, I believe it's a co-created experience. So what's going on the internal is going to affect what goes on the external. What goes on the external is going to affect what goes on in the internal. And this is a dance that we're in throughout our entire lives, right? And we really need to get connected to that dance. And what I do like to tell people, and I think it's true, right? It's like the part that we have the most control over, it's not our feelings. Our feelings arise, I think, primarily first in the body as physical sensations, and I don't think that we can control them. If we could control how we felt, well, everything would be a lot easier, wouldn't it? But I also don't think we can completely control what happens to us, right? I think the world is way more chaotic and unpredictable than that. And there are so many external forces and things that are beyond our control, beyond our even capacity to understand them, that make things the way they are or make events occur to us externally. So I don't think that we have this total control over what's going on outside of us. But what do we have the most control over? Are the story we tell ourselves about what is going on. The story we tell ourselves about what is going on when we're having a physical reaction to an emotional reaction to something that's going on. The story we tell ourselves when we get a flat tire. The story we tell ourselves when we start feeling sexual desire for someone. The story we tell ourselves when, we get a pay raise. Right? That is the part that we have the most control over. So in that sense, I do think it makes, it's reasonable to put some attention and energy and focus onto that, but not from a place of, oh, if I get this perfectly right, I'm going to be able to control everything, because I think that can really set you up for some disappointment. The next thing that I wanted to talk about that Anna brought up in her video is this idea that so many spiritual teachers and people that she's come across on YouTube or Instagram, when they are teaching about manifesting, that they're always talking about manifesting really shallow materialistic things, like how do you manifest a new car, how do you manifest a mansion, or how do you manifest this, and instead of thinking about, how do we manifest world peace and things like that. And once again, I completely agree with her. It's so crazy. People who claim to have spiritual enlightenment or being like very spiritual can be very blatant basically about their greed and their materialism and their concept that, because they have more money or because they've set out to make more money and they've succeeded, that means that they're somehow more spiritually mature or successful. And I just think that's total bullshit for sure, and I agree with that. But I would just say, again, it's that calling the kettle black thing, because if you look at the materialist worldview, the rationalist worldview, or even just the mainstream, right, what most people feel and think, we are completely obsessed with money. Everyone is greedy, right? There's so many people that go into their jobs specifically just to make as much money as possible. They spend their whole entire lives doing whatever they can to make as much money as possible. It's not an issue that is special to the spiritual world. I only think it's coming up as a critique because we have some idea that spiritual people should be above that. And I think that actually points to our understanding on a deeper level that this greed and this materialism, this materialistic worldview, this idea that the only thing that matters is accumulating as much resources as possible so that we can feel, whatever that's supposed to make us feel, right? That whole mindset, there's a part of us, I think, that knows it's not good, right? We know that greed is not making us feel well and is not motivating us to our highest purpose. And so maybe we would expect that people who are in a spiritual mindset, that they would also understand that. But I just don't, I don't think that we can really expect that of spiritual teachers and people that have certain just because people have certain things that disagree with the mainstream doesn't mean that they are actually fully separated from the mainstream thinking. And we are so entrenched with the idea that money and accumulating resources means you're successful, means that you're doing good, means that you're a good person, and all of those things. I mean, that's our bread and butter. We're raised on that, especially in America from day one. We really are taught to think that money is everything and resource accumulation is everything, right? And it takes a lot to kind of say, no, I'm going to try to do something else. So even if you're a spiritual person, that doesn't mean that you are going to be exempt from that societal, cultural pressure. And I guess what I want to say here, what I feel like the middle path is really about, is a grounded spirituality, right? That is actually in touch with the responsibility that we as human beings have to the earth, right? Because where do all these resources come from? How are we accumulating all this stuff and making all this stuff? It's coming from the earth, right? And all of this greed that we're experiencing and we're seeing and we're really not, jiving with, there's part of us that really doesn't feel good about it. I think that's an accurate response to the actual result that we're seeing, which is the degradation of the natural world and the ultimate threat to human existence in general. So lastly, I want to talk about the pseudoscience critique that Anna gave in her critique of New Age spirituality, just talking about how a lot of spiritual people that she's come across or people that she's looked at will use a lot of jargon, pseudoscience, and be very certain about certain beliefs that they have that aren't really based in science. And one of the things though that she pointed out is the fact that quantum mechanics is used to, it's sort of like a catch-all term, just basically people referring according to quantum mechanics, and then they just fill in the blanks, whatever they want to fill in, to just sort of justify whatever thing they're trying to convince people of, whether it's the law of attraction or spiritual bypassing or just some other belief that they have about energy or vibrations or those types of things. And so, first of all, of course, there is a lot of pseudoscience that is rampant within the spiritual world if people talk about science at all or try to prove their things by science, right? Because there's also plenty of people who are just completely disregard science and rationality and think that it's not good or it's wrong, or they're just against it wholeheartedly from the outset. And I think something that's really important for people to understand from the other side of things, if you're looking at people using quantum mechanics and being like, oh, they're doing all this quackery with quantum mechanics. Well, there's something about quantum mechanics that I think is really not understood enough, which is that today in science, physics, when physicists talk, theoretical physicists talk about the nature of reality and they try to talk about quantum mechanics and what the theories of quantum mechanics shows, they do not agree, right? There is not scientific consensus at the moment of what quantum mechanics means. Now, does that mean every person gets to just walk up and decide, well, this is my interpretation of quantum mechanics and this is what it means? No, of course not. But it's just worth understanding and noting that in the science, it is not agreed upon. And the reason it's not agreed upon is actually pretty fundamental to our understanding of reality in general, right? Because Albert Einstein, died, and before he died, he said, there's no spooky action at a distance. And he was really struggling with his theory of relativity and then the evidence that quantum mechanics was showing, really struggling to understand how quantum mechanics actually worked and how it related to reality. And it's a mystery that we're still working with now because, of course, since his death, physicists have shown that there is spooky action at a distance. What is spooky action at a distance? Basically non-local behavior in atoms, right? So when we get onto the quantum level, we can observe in experiments that things that have no physical interaction, no way of that we can understand, right, that they would be giving each other information or spreading information or anything like that, that their behaviors can affect one another, okay? So again, I totally agree that people on the spiritual side of things will take quantum mechanics and use that to explain a lot of things that really don't necessarily apply. But I also think it's worth understanding that there is not scientific consensus about quantum mechanics. What does all of that mean? I guess if I was going to sum things up and just trying to leave you with something in general, it's like, of course, there are things within the spiritual mindset or spiritual point of view that are not necessarily good for you. And there's things in the mainstream, the rationalist, the materialist point of view they're also not necessarily good for you. And instead of feeling like you have to choose one or another, or there has to be one path, or there is a right answer, understanding, like similar to quantum mechanics, we're still figuring things out. We're all on a path. We're all in a journey. And if we can just understand that there's a middle way and look for that middle way as much as possible, I think we'll avoid a lot of the issues on both sides. Because as Anna talked about in her video, and I talked about earlier, one of the biggest things is this black and white thinking and really getting into a mindset that things have to be either or. And I think what reality shows me over and over again is that it's not that concrete. It's a lot of gray. It's a lot of nuance. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know if you like this video. Like I said, I could have commented on every single one of the critiques that Anna talked about, and so maybe I'll do that if you guys like this. So let me know if you liked it. Hit subscribe. Keep tuning in. I'm super excited to be talking about all this stuff, and I really appreciate you. So I hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.